Today we're going to talk about midpoints. We've got two different kinds of midpoints. We've got the midpoint on a number line, which is just the average of the two other points that are on the line. So here I'm going to draw a number line, numbered 1 to 7. My 2 points are 2 and 6. 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Therefore, 4 is our midpoint. Now, today we're going to talk more about midpoints on a coordinate plane. Midpoints on a coordinate plane are an ordered pair that's an average of the x and y values. So we're doing the same idea, but this time it's resulting in an ordered pair. So if point 1 is defined by x1, y1, and point 2 is defined by x2, y2, let's show that on a coordinate plane here. We've got one point there, the second point. We'll label them. And then we're going to define the midpoint as x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. When we do that math, will result in an ordered pair. So, number 1 here, the instructions are going to say just find the midpoint. And the points that we are given are 2, 5, and 3, 9. Now I'm going to label them here x1, y1, and x2, y2, just so we can keep our points in the right order. We're going to take 2 plus 3 divided by 2, and 5 plus 9 divided by 2. So we get 5 over 2 and 14 over 2, which reduces to 2.5 and 7. So we have the point 2.57 as our midpoint. For letter B, we're going to be finding the midpoint between the points -8, 0 and -2, 2. So once again, I'm going to label those x1, y1, x2, y2. And now let's put them into our formula. We're going to have -8 plus -2 divided by 2 and 0 plus 2 divided by 2. That results in -10 over 2, comma 2 over 2, which reduces nicely to the point -5, 1. For letter C, we're going to find the midpoint between 1, -3, and 7, 4. So we'll label them and then we will add our x values. We have 1 plus 7 divided by 2. And then our y values, we have -3 plus 4 divided by 2. This results in 8 over 2, comma 1 over 2, which is 4, 0.5. And that's our midpoint between those 2 points. For number 2, our instructions say identify the points and then find the midpoint algebraically and label it on the graph. So we're going to be working on a coordinate plane for this problem. And we will see here, we've got our coordinate plane that we're drawing for letter A. And we just put 2 points on there. Point 1. This one here, I'm going to draw a little arrow towards it. It is the point -1, 1. And then point 2, a little arrow towards that one as well. This one's going to be 4, 4. And now we're going to use the midpoint formula between the two of those. We'll have -1 plus 4 over 2 and 1 plus 4 over 2. Which results in 3 over 2, 5 over 2, and I'm going to simplify that to decimals because they're easier to graph. So we get the point 1.5, 2.5. And now we're going to put that onto the coordinate plane here, over 1.5, up 2.5, and draw a dot, and there it is, right in the middle. For letter B, I've got a coordinate plane here, I've got 2 points on it. Point 1, we are going to identify as -3, -1. And point 2, we will identify as 1, -4. We'll put those into the formula, which will result in -3 plus 1 over 2, comma, -1 plus -4 over 2, simplifying to -2 over 2, -5 over 2, which then is -1, -2.5. And let's put that on the graph here. If we go 1 to the left and down 2.5, we see the midpoint between our given points. Okay, last one for this section. I've got a graph, coordinate plane with 2 points on it. Point 1 we will identify as -1, 3. And point 2 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, so 5, -1. Now let's put them into our formula. We get -1 plus 5 over 2 and 3 plus -1 over 2. This simplifies to 4 over 2, 2 over 2, and that is the point 2, 1. And over 2, up 1, there is our midpoint. So another way to use the concept of the midpoint is to find what we call the centroid of a triangle. So the centroid is the point where all 3 medians intersect. So if you found the midpoint of 3 lines of a triangle and then connected those midpoints to the corresponding vertices, you would get a point, and that point is called the centroid. So we're going to look at a picture of this here. There are my 3 midpoints. I connected them to their vertices, and there is the centroid. So if I'm given 3 points, x1, y1, x2, y2, and x3, y3, then my centroid is going to be similar to the median. We're going to add all the x values, but we'll divide by 3 this time. Add all the y values and divide by 3 on that. There's the centroid's formula. So number 3 here is just going to ask us to find the centroid. Given 3 points, for letter A, we've got the point 2, 6, the point 3, 5, and the point -2, 1. I'm going to label those as x1, y1, x2, y2, and x3, y3. And it's important to note that these points are the coordinates of the vertices of the triangle. So if we're looking at that triangle picture up above, these would be the 3 vertices on that. So to find the centroid, we're going to add all the x values and divide by 3, add the y values and divide by 3. And when we do that, we end up with the point 3, 3, 12, 3. Which reduces to 1, 4. For letter B, we're given the points 0, 5, 2, -6, and 3, 2. Now, once again, I'll label them, just keep them straight. x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. And we're going to add all of the x values and divide by 3, and then add all of the y values and divide by 3. So I have 0 plus 2 plus 3 over 3, and 5 plus -6 plus 2 over 3. This will simplify to 5 over 3, 1 over 3, which I'm going to put this in decimal form because I know on this next problem we're going to be asked to graph some things, and decimals are easier to graph in my opinion. So we get 1.6 repeating, 0.3 repeating. Now before we actually start the next problem, I want us to look at what's actually happening here graphically. So I'm going to give us 3 points, and we're going to look at all of the math behind the idea of where the centroid comes from. So point 1 is 0, 3, point 2 is 4, 0, and point 3 is -2, -1. And here I'm going to graph those on a coordinate plane and then connect them to form a triangle. So those points are my 3 vertices. And now what I want to do is I want to find the midpoints of each of those lines. So I'm going to use the midpoint formula from our last lesson and find the midpoint here between points 1 and 2. And we're going to get the point 2, 1.5. So now I'm going to go over 2, up 1.5, and put a dot there. There's the midpoint of that line. And now I'm going to find the midpoint between points 2 and 3. And remember, we're finding these midpoints by adding the x values and dividing by 2, and adding the y values and dividing by 2. And we get 1, -0.5, so I'm over 1, down 1/2. And now we're going to find it between points 1 and 3. So we're going to do the math here, and it's going to result in -1, 1, left 1, up 1. And now I'm going to connect these midpoints to the vertices that are across from them. And the intersection point of all 3 of these lines should be the centroid. So now let's do the math for the centroid, just like we have talked about here. We're going to add all the x values, divide by 3, add the y values, divide by 3. We're going to get the point 2/3, 2/3, which as a decimal is 0.6 repeating, 0.6 repeating. And that is exactly where it is on the graph there. All right, for number 4, our instructions are going to be graph the points, find the centroid algebraically, and then graph the centroid. So for letter A, we are going to be given the points -2, -2, 1, 8, and 4, 0. So I've got a coordinate plane here. I've graphed all 3 of those points. And now I'm going to do the math behind finding the centroid, meaning I'm going to add all my x values and divide by 3, and then add all my y values and divide by 3. Once I do that, I'm left with the fractions 3/3, 6/3, which so nicely reduces to the ordered pair 1, 2. So now I'm going to graph that centroid over 1, up 2 on my graph. And now I feel like I want to see it, see exactly what's happening. So I'm going to lightly connect these vertices to form a triangle. And then try and draw from my vertices through the centroid. And now I've found what is the median of each side. Just a guess of what that would be. But I think sometimes when we find the centroid, it does help to see exactly what's happening graphically.